We are under a week before number one quarterback Bryce Underwood makes his big decision. And the question is, can Michigan keep the Belleville product home, or is he leaving the state? That's what I want to know in today's video when I bring in Wolverine insider Zach Libby. We're going to talk Underwood. We'll talk the latest on Gatlin Bair, and we'll hit on the transfer portal as well. Before we get started, though, Michigan fans, do me a big favor. Hit subscribe. Look, we're trying to grow this thing. We need you to be a part of it. Michigan fans, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. All right, let's bring on Zach Libby from the Wolverine. Now, number one quarterback Bryce Underwood decides Saturday. But first, let's finish out the 2024 cycle and talk a little wide receiver Gatlin Bair. He opted not to sign during the early period. Pretty much down to Oregon and Michigan. Zach, what are your sources saying about Michigan's chances right now?
Yeah, I mean, Michigan's in a good spot, and it's been that way ever since late November when he returned for Michigan for the Ohio State game, which was his first visit back since his official visit in June. I mean, Michigan has knocked it out of the park in terms of selling what it can sell and selling a comforting atmosphere and really a family vibe. I think that's been the basis throughout this whole recruitment. Selling family. He comes from a small town. He comes from a large family. He comes from a close family. Now, Michigan is going after him with multiple coaches. I mean, head coach Jim Harbaugh, wide receivers coach Ron Bellamy, area recruiter Jay Harbaugh has been in the mix for a while. They did their in-home last week. I mean, right before the early signing period with him. And, tight ends coach Grant Newsom was out there with him. So there's a lot of eggs in the basket, if you will, for landing arguably the fastest man in pads. Now, Michigan has offered him more than just, relationships. There's more than that. It's strength and conditioning program under Ben Herbert. This is a kid who wants to major in kinesiology. So that's a path that he wants to take. They're selling him a role in an offense. I mean, this is a kid, right? Like a 10.15 100-meter dash time, second fastest in the country. So they're selling him on being that player, that X factor in an offense that's trying to rebrand itself in a way and having a more balanced attack. So having him on the outside, having him being that weapon that Michigan can have, and having him be a difference maker in the offense. I mean, that's really been a big selling point for him too. Now, there's other things as well. Head coach Cameron Anderson at Burley, Idaho, he has coached Colson Loveland at Michigan, who's the sophomore tight end. Now, there's a connection there. But they're also selling him, we're going to accept you in 2 years, because keep in mind, he is going on his 2-year mission. So this is a kid going to enroll in 2026. So they're saying we will welcome you in 2 years. I mean, Harbaugh has had experience recruiting mission kids. I mean, Taysom Hill when Harbaugh was at Stanford back in the day. That's just an example. Andrew Gentry, who's on the roster right now. So this is a familiar territory for Michigan and Harbaugh. But yeah, I mean, having Bair delay it into February isn't that much of a surprise. I mean, he's not going on his mission until late February, so he has that time to think it over. But the race against Oregon, I mean, Oregon has a more dynamic offense, if you will. It's closer to home. But again, he has seen what is available in Ann Arbor in terms of being a part of an atmosphere like the Big House for one of the biggest games in the country. So he has seen.
What's next for him, though, in terms of visits? Does Michigan have any ability to get him back to campus? Do they even need to get him back to campus, in your opinion, to land him?
No, he has seen everything that is there is available, but I don't believe he has specifically told me he doesn't have to visit again.
Right.
He has everything from the official visit to the weekend in Ann Arbor. So I think everything in those 2 visits gave him exactly what he needs to in order to make a decision.
All right. Well, January will prove important for his recruitment. Now let's talk Bryce Underwood. January is not going to be matter. He's coming off the board on January 6th. And heading down the stretch, there was a lot of talk. Why hasn't he visited Michigan during the season? Well, he finally did. He made a stop there in December. What's the latest intel on where Michigan stands with Bryce Underwood as we're about 5 days out from his big decision?
Yeah, so I guess the big thing was when we were last on here, and he supposedly took a visit, which didn't happen. But he ended up visiting Alabama that final weekend of the dead period, which was, that was the weekend in which Michigan was going to have him on campus. There was a need for him and his family, in my opinion, to have a sit down with head coach Jim Harbaugh, figure out what the plan is for the future, have him get more individual meetings with Kirk Campbell, the quarterback's coach, to go over fit in the offense, the future of the offense, and really have him sit down with uh, I don't know, important people in the program just to figure out off the field opportunities. I think that's the big difference maker in how like he can monetize individualistic brands,
Mm-hmm.
how he can capitalize on NIL through Michigan. There's just things that need to be done on a weekend visit that just couldn't be done on, let's say, going there on a random weekday in the on a school day and just hanging around campus. But having him not there on that final weekend and him instead going to Alabama, it's just, I think that was the difference maker in terms of just how confident Michigan could be, in landing the number one player in the country who's less than 30 minutes away from campus. So again, like you said, he's deciding on Saturday. So there's no visits since the Ohio State game. So I haven't put in my prediction yet, but I still, as I've mentioned here on many times, I feel like the On3 recruiting prediction machine is accurate. I have said before that he has always had an interest of his playing for the SEC. Alabama's making a big push right now, but LSU has been just a constant in his recruitment, and I feel like wherever he lands, Michigan just is far behind.
All right, let's say Underwood does go to LSU or Alabama or Colorado on Saturday, and it's not Michigan. What's next for Michigan at the position? What do they do? I know they already have one quarterback committed, but what do they do at the position after Underwood is off the board?
I mean, they still have targets in the 25 class. I mean, there's quarterbacks like Husan Longstreet out of Centennial High in California. Kirk Campbell has obviously not put all eggs in one basket, an approach that was done under previous regimes or previous quarterback coaches at Michigan. There's been a diversity in terms of offering quarterbacks at that
Mm-hmm.
position, that class. But obviously, the transfer portal is available. The likelihood of JJ McCarthy leaving for the NFL is not a guarantee. He could stay, he could leave. So, you kind of have to have that quality uh, next man in line at the position. Right now in the depth chart, I mean, who is going to take over if JJ McCarthy leaves next season? Do you
Right.
go to the transfer portal? Do you keep recruiting 25 quarterbacks? I mean, they have one in Carter Smith, right? A very high upside player, a very
Sure.
big dual threat player. But we'll see what happens. But, Kirk Campbell is one of the most elite recruiters on Michigan's staff. So if they don't end up getting Bryce Underwood, there will be options in 25 that will be on the board.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned possibly a portal quarterback, but just speaking in generalities here, as Michigan is still battling in the playoffs, when we do hit the offseason for the Wolverines, what will their portal strategy look like? Do you think that fans should expect a heavy, an aggressive push at the portal, or maybe just, spot a few guys here and there?
I mean, spot recruiting. They don't. There's not going to be. They don't. It's not going to be an aggressive transfer portal recruiting for Michigan. You've never seen that these past few cycles for Michigan. I feel like they'll find their guys that are culture fits, that can be in that environment, that know they can plug and play. You've seen that, this past season from like Ladarius Henderson to Ernest Hausman. But they've already landed, a guy in linebacker Jay Sean Barnum,
Mm-hmm.
a guy, a guy who can rack up tackles and you can plug him in. But there are going to be some needs at the transfer portal. Positions like cornerback. You've seen guys like Cameron Calhoun, freshman, leave. Defensive line. Um, Camp Chris Jenkins, a guy like Cam Good. Rotational guys. You want more depth pieces. So guys will be gone last year. You want to replace them. Wide receiver is going to be another one. I feel like Michigan has already been targeting guys and offering guys. There's you could lose guys like Cornelius Johnson and Roman Wilson. So you want that proven
Yeah.
playmaker. But the quarterback's another, obviously, depending on whether JJ stays or not. So you're not going to see an aggressive push like some other schools, but obviously it's a resource that Michigan values, and you'll see some guys popping in.
Yeah, they can definitely add some important pieces. All right, Zach Libby, thank you for dropping by the Inside Scoop, talking a little Michigan recruiting today.
Appreciate it, Josh. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that content, be sure to subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We have a new page dedicated only to recruiting. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now.